Hi, John Manis, Pinnacle Storage Properties. It's not Pinnacle Self Storage. That's a totally
Sorry.
different company.
Sorry.
So it's Pinnacle Storage Properties. We're located in Katy, Texas. Been in the industry. This is my 18th year. Worked for one of the REITs, then worked for a private company here in Houston. And now for the last 6 years, I've done about $200 million worth of storage. We're on our 42nd deal right now. It's due to close first week of June. Raised $45 million of private equity. We buy undermanaged, under-enhanced, under-expanded self-storage properties, or what you guys know as the value add mom and pop. We clean them up, fix them up, and then sell them to the big money players like the REITs. That's what we do.
Awesome, John. Tell a bit for people who don't know, how did you get started in self-storage?
So I worked in retail like the Walmarts and Kmarts of the world for like 17 years. I never worked for either of those, but I worked in big box, discount, specialty, all these different retailers, and I just got burned out on it. And at 36 years old, I made this really, really good decision, me and my wife, to quit our jobs with no jobs and move in with my mom. So,
everybody should do it once.
yeah. So,
especially at 36 years old.
Well, to then realize why I moved out at 15. But I took a hiatus from life for like 5 months and tried to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I knew I'd worked my way up from a sales associate up to regional manager in retail. And I knew I liked the multi-store leadership more than I liked the single store leadership. So I started to apply to jobs like general manager of 3 warehouses, regional manager of multifamily. Like I started to apply to those kind of jobs, and I applied to a self-storage job as a district manager for San Antonio and Austin. And I didn't even know what I applied for. And it was with Uncle Bob's Self-Storage. I interviewed, I was their second choice. They actually gave an offer to somebody from Public Storage. The guy accepted the job, went back to Public to resign. They counter offered. So he stayed with Public. So they called me and said, "Are you still interested?" I still have the thank you, but no thank you letter from Jennifer Koza from Uncle Bob's telling me I didn't get the job. So I ended up getting a job. Did so well, they promoted me a regional vice president. As a reward, moved me to Buffalo, New York. And I lived in Buffalo for like 4 years. From there, got fired and landed a COO's job here in Houston with a regional player that had 55 self-storage properties. I was there 5.5 years. I fired from there. And since I couldn't keep a job, I said, screw it, started my own company. So, and that was 6 years ago.
How did you get fired from not 1, but 2 positions in the higher up as talented as you are?
That's why. And so you said I'm supposed to keep a PG 13, so I'll
well, we don't have to. I mean, just you
okay.
you. Yeah.
So, so I call it small wiener syndrome.
Yeah.
And that is when your boss has a small wiener and like you're doing better than he does, so he gets intimidated by that.
I can't.
So.
Stop, Jessica. You know it's true.
Oh, I love
Josh it. So yeah, so like for when I worked for the publicly traded company, my boss was a bully. I don't deal well with that. I grew up with it, and it's a fight or flight type of mentality, and I'm a fight. So because of that, it painted me into a corner of being combative, which I was. And eventually you get fired for that kind of stuff. And then when I was a COO, I wanted more. Like I had learned, I'm a driven guy. So I wanted to buy a property my boss said I could, but got pissed off about it. And then I put one under contract, and that's when so I went from running his company, not talking to him for 30 days at a time, to being put on a PIP.
Nope.
So
That'll do it.
So I,
That's for
so I knew it was coming. Like,
Yeah,
and then 30 days later, he fired me. So because I put a property under contract. So to those of you out there, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. So go get fired. It forces you to make some decisions. So the person you don't know is my brother Joe. Is he's the pretty one because he's got a good set of hair. But I called him the day after I got fired from my second job, and I said, "Hey, Ricky fired me yesterday," and he did what any good brother would do. Like, he didn't go, "So what are you going to do? Is there anything I can help you with?" Or he didn't do any of that. He said, "Congratulations." I was like, "What?" He said, "Congratulations. This is the biggest opportunity of your life. You got everything lined up. What are you waiting for?" And I thought, what am I waiting for? I said, "What am I waiting for?" He said, "Nothing, go do it." And he kicked me in the ass 24 hours after I got fired a second time. And here we are. March 15th was 6 years, 42 deals, $200 million. Best thing ever happened.
Awesome, man. So tell me a little bit about, like I saw a little bit, got a chance to read and see some pictures from your book and stuff like that. Tell me what it was like kind of being with your two brothers and stuff like in your family, growing up. Did you guys have that similar background of, being an entrepreneur, or was that ever encouraged in your family?
So I'm the middle of three boys. So James, which most of you know, is the youngest by 3.5 years younger than I am, and almost 5.5 years younger than Joe. Me and Joe were only 1 grade apart. So growing up, James was the little brother that, when I'm 14, he's 10. Like when I'm 18, he's 14. Like, it's just enough age gap that we didn't really hang out, him and I, until he turned like 18, and then kind of became inseparable. So, but me and Joe have literally been best friends, almost twins, like our whole life. So very similar thought process. So we were raised by my mom and my stepfather. My dad had a little bit of involvement in our later years. My real dad did. And my stepfather pushed us to be overachievers in everything that we did. Like from the time I was probably 5 or 6 years old until I went to junior high at 14 or something like that. We went by his last name, Zelag. And James went to kindergarten and scored 100% on his kindergarten test. And the teacher said to him, "You know what that means, right?" And he said, "What?" He said, "That means you didn't get anything wrong. You didn't make any mistakes." And James's answer was, "Well, yeah, because Z-Legs don't make mistakes." And that's how we were raised. We were raised that take pride in what you do. You do it what is perceived as right. You have credibility. You do what you say and say what you do. And if you didn't, you got your ass beat. So in the business world, that equates to, for me, my investors calling me and beating me up all the time, or whatever. Like if I don't execute, then I'm not winning. So we were raised not entrepreneurially, but very competitively. Football for 9 years. James ran track. James was like number 4 in the state of New Jersey in the 400 or whatever the hell he ran. Like
1600.
1600. Very, very competitive. And in business, that holds true. My brother Joe, the same exact way. If he was on here, I'd say this: he sucked at football, but he still played for like 9 years. But we were raised very competitively. And then on top of that, my stepfather, the house we grew up in, a guy by the name of Jack Deal, did what a lot of you guys do, but in the single family home. He actually financed the house for my mom and stepfather on a private mortgage for them to buy the house in the early 80s. Because they didn't have a lot of credit. Roger was young. He was like 24, 25 years old. And
Seventies.
what's that? In the
It was in
70s?
the seventies, yeah.
Yeah. So he did a personal note to my mom and Roger. They made enough value add in the 80s on that house that when James was in high school and I was out of the house, not by choice, because I was a bit of a troublemaker, moved into a duplex, and Roger rehabbed the one side of the duplex while they lived in this side. And then when this was done, they moved into that side. He rehabbed the other side, rented that out, eventually added enough value that he moved out, rented both sides, bought another house, rehabbed that house. And that's what showed us the wealth pattern of real estate in a small scale. And then when they left New Jersey to Texas, they sold both properties and had enough money to pay cash for a property in Texas.
Awesome.
So that is exactly what we do now. It wasn't taught to us, but we watched it happen.
Yeah, you definitely emulated it. Tell me, kind of referring to that and going to that, tell me a little bit about your first acquisition or your first property that you bought, like the size of it, kind of how you put all that deal together and stuff like that. Because I know, some people are getting started are definitely interested in that.
I got a lot of advice for the getting started people, but so I need to take a little bit of a step back.
Go ahead.
I'll say to you guys, how bad do you want it? Like, how bad do you want to be successful? And you can ask James, my mentality through my life and my career is I've always wanted it more than the other person. And that's that competitive nature, right? And that's what got me fired, is I wanted more than what my bosses wanted all through my career. So I need to take a step back, because when I quit my job with no job, moved in with my mom, I started looking for land in Texas. I shopped around so hard that I found 10 acres for $75,000 in the hill country. Ended up buying it, and me and my, at the time, 15-year-old nephew, Jacob, and my wife built the house with our own hands. And I was working for Uncle Bob's at the time, and we were living off my wife's paycheck and using my paycheck cash out of pocket to build the house. It took me 10 months to build the house itself to be able to move into it. The reason that's important is because that started the equity pool of net worth for me. While I was living in the house, Uncle Bob's paid us 55 cents a mile to drive. And that's what I did for a living. I was a district manager. I drove from store to store to store to store. So I went out and bought a 1984 Nissan Sentra, and this was in 2005. It had 60,000 miles on it, stick shift, no air conditioning in San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
Because I recognized Uncle Bob's was going to pay me, it got 44 miles to the gallon, and they were going to pay me to drive around. So for 9 months in Texas, I sweat my ass off. I would leave a store, I'd have a t-shirt on, I'd take my dress shirt off and drive down the road till I started to pull up to the next door, and I'd put my shirt back on. How bad do you want it? I made $12,000 that year driving that car. I paid $2,500 for the car. I drove it for 9 months, made 12 grand, sold it for $1,750 when I was done with it with 90,000 miles on it, and used that $12,000 to do the expansion on the house that I lived in. Put a more space on the back of it, build a pool house and put a pool in, things like that. While I was living, I lived off of the mileage that I had. The reason that's important is because I have $168,000 in that house. And today the house is worth about 625. And now fast forward, what's that, 15, 17 years, it's paid off. And when I went to do my first deal, ironically, when I moved to Texas, I moved to this town called Bernie, Texas. And I was living in Katy, Texas, in Houston, that's outside of San Antonio. And ironically, the first property that I put under contract was in Bernie, Texas. So I knew the market, I knew the property, all that stuff. And most importantly, is I had enough net worth on paper with my 10, 11, 12 years of experience in storage to be able to sign on debt. And I bought, my first property was $4.3 million. We had to raise $1.5 million. I thought I could raise $300,000 or $400,000. I ended up raising $900,000. My partner on that deal raised $600,000, of which $200,000 was his own money. So talk about being competitive. I told him, he said, well, if we don't raise enough money, I'll put the rest of it in. I said, no, you won't. No, you won't. I'll kill myself before closing to be able to raise that money. And I raised $900,000, of which $100,000 of it was my money, which surprised me that I could raise that money. The reason for the story behind the house is because I wanted it so bad, I was willing to sweat my ass off for 9 months to make that money, to gain net worth, to have some net worth, to then eventually go buy a property. And by the time I went to buy that property, I had $1 million net worth, but only had $100,000 in the bank.
Mhm.
Because of that property. So for the newbies out there, how bad do you want it? So I wanted it bad enough that I was willing to sacrifice whatever it took to get there. And then me and my partner kept 30% of the back end of that deal. We got like 1.5% fee on the front end, which was like $33,000 to me, which I left into the deal. And at the time when I didn't have any money, and this is for you guys that don't have any money, leaving your fee in a deal sucks. It really hurts because you ain't got no money and you don't have any money coming in, right? So at the time, I'd have kept the $33,000, but I added 66 to it for $100,000, 67, whatever that maths out to be. And I left $100,000 in the deal. In hindsight, really, really good idea. At the time, I had a poverty mentality and I really needed the money, but I sucked it up and did it anyway. That $100,000 and my 15%, we leased it up, all that stuff, added an expansion with no money out of pocket for investors because we used the added value of the property to do the expansion, so on and so on. When I sold that property, I made $1.8 million. $100,000.
How long of a time frame was that?
5.5 years.
5.5 years.
So I know you're trying to give them an idea, but who gives a shit? I made 1.8 million.
No,
I've been 10, 20 years.
That's out of
Still
my
made
own,
1.8 million.
yeah, that's out of my own curiosity. You know, like it's like Malou just said. You know, it's definitely a delayed gratification and stuff like that. But I look at it as and you're right. In the hindsight of it, it was you made $1.8 million. But I'm also look at it as, you know, in 3 to 5 years, look at what you can accomplish. You know, put your head down and just
So
go.
there's a statement out there that says that people underestimate what you can get done in a 5-year time frame. People underestimate what you can get done in a 5-year time frame. And they overestimate what they can get done in a year. So because of that, fear kicks in and you do nothing. Because you're like, man, I can't get this done. This is a pain in the ass. It's been a year and I haven't made any money. Right, James? Right?
We all go through it. It's growing pains.
But in 5 years, it's amazing what you can get done in a 5-year time frame.
Yeah.
John, John, can I chime in with a question?
No, Isaac. Here. What's up, man? How you been?
First of all, it's my first time on here. I just want to thank you. It's amazing. I follow you on LinkedIn, and it's incredible what you're doing. I have a basic question about self-storage. I have many clients. Obviously, most of my clients are the multifamily guys because many guys are in the multifamily arena. But I have a significant amount of guys in self-storage, and something I just want to understand: is it easier to scale? And this is what you were talking about a little bit ago. Is it easier to scale in self-storage versus multifamily?
There's pros and cons to both. How's that for an answer? I'll sit on the fence for a second, but then I'll tell you my belief. I think the financial institutions, whether they're banks or equity or whoever, are more in favor of multifamily than they are self-storage. And the reason I think that is psychological is because you live in an apartment or you live in a house, so you understand what it takes to run that house or own that house or live in that apartment.
Zero, there's flooring, there's tile, there's vanities, what do you mean zero?
Somebody needs to go on mute.
Countertops,
Yeah, for
Right.
door trims, and
I don't think it's you, Isaac, but the institutions are more familiar with multifamily because they live in a house. They don't understand storage as a business or as a real estate play. So they're less apprehensive to invest in it, and they're less apprehensive to lend you money against it from a bank standpoint. So to answer your question, it's probably easier to scale multifamily. But historically, multifamily has had up to a 32% foreclosure rate at times, where self-storage has had up to a 2% foreclosure rate at times. So it's your job as an owner operator to educate the equity or the debt to understand that it's a less risk file. Now,
But yeah, go for it.
if you're a newbie, I think it's even harder to scale. So take in a partner that knows what the hell they're doing and then scale. So on top of that, you're going to learn that properties from 4 properties that are spread out to 15, 17 properties that are spread out are a lot harder to run. From a scale standpoint, if you're trying to get big, anything over 20 becomes easier to run. Still, when you're between that 3, 4, and 15, 16.
so let me ask you a question, just so we're clear, because I'm.
Hey, guys, if you could
we
mute,
go
if you could
ahead
mute
and use
yourself.
the budget, not the actual, then what?
Thank you.
So it's still painful in that range because you're not making enough management fees to have 3 district managers, 4 bookkeepers, all that. There's like, for those of you that want to go into third-party management, there's no freaking money in it. I mean, I do it to have resources to continue to scale, but I don't do a lot of third-party management for other people. If I'm going to use my expertise on operations, I want a piece of the pie. So hopefully that answers your question. I am pro self-storage over multifamily any day. Like, their cap rates are historically in the 3s, which is ridiculous. You know, I can buy the same cash flow for a 6 that they're buying for a 3 and give my investor a better return on their money.
What I'm taking out from this is that it might be harder to get into your first property due to the fact that it'd be harder for financing, et cetera. But once you're in, the benefits definitely outweigh. Yeah, these guys, some of my guys that do self-storage and retail, they're like, they wouldn't touch multifamily with a 100-foot pole.
Neither would I.
Yeah.
So, but That's a good point about getting into your first property is, so really what it comes down to is control. And whether you want to buy yourself a job. This is what I told Anthony. I got a lot of opinions on for newbies is all you guys are out there chasing these 50 unit properties, 100 unit properties for this remote management platform to scale, blah, 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 blah. Well, when you buy 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 of those that are spread out all over the place, the only thing you're doing is buying yourself a job. So if you do want a job, go do that. If not, buy something bigger that has enough money in it that you can have additional resources that you won't have in a small property, and partner with somebody that knows what the hell they're doing, or that has signing power, or that knows how to raise equity, or that knows how to operate them, or that can go find it and lock it up under contract or what. Find somebody, bring your expertise to the table, and then go do that deal. And you'll find that your first property isn't really that hard to do.
Awesome. That's what, like I'm looking at it too. And I definitely 100% agree with you. The cash flow on the bigger properties, it's just there. It's there to be able to take care of anything that you need to, as well as cash flow for you and your investors, So
the biggest problem that newbies do is they don't build in enough money into the deal. And they don't build in enough money for the resources that they need. And then they're trying to do everything themselves. And you only have 24 hours in a day. So you just bought yourself a job. You overpaid for the property. You didn't budget enough expenses, not only at store level, but at the corporate level in order to run the property. And you're making a 6% management fee on a property that does $10,000 a month. $600. Who cares? Who the hell you're going to hire for $600 a month? So you're taking the $600 because you're trying to live off of it. You're doing the bookkeeping. You're doing the revenue management. You're doing the hiring and firing. You're doing the vendor sourcing and so on, all for $600 a month. Big deal. But if you budget it right and you charge a minimum of $1,500, that means if you're paying $1 million for the property, you're only going to pay $800,000 for the property because you got to have some cash flow to pay people for your resources.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Awesome. Appreciate it. I'll bring Ariel up. You can unmute yourself if you want to ask a quick question. If that's okay with you, John.
I don't
Yeah.
care.
Go ahead.
John, thanks for hosting. This is an awesome meetup. My first time here. Anthony, good to see you.
Good to see you.
James and Isaac. My question was actually to Isaac's point, similar. All I hear about multifamily is there's always going to be a need for it. People always need where to live, and other asset types are so risky because you never know when they'll shut down. But the statistics, apologies, that you're giving about foreclosure are telling me otherwise. So would you actually say that self-storage is going to be more stable, more secure than multifamily? Because you know what I'm saying? There's that argument of multifamily is always going to be needed, and then everything else, heck knows.
I think my statistics prove it. So I
Exactly.
think you're answering your own question. So get out of your denial and move into self-storage and get the hell out of multifamily. So,
That's a good put it.
so I'm very passionate about this. But there's a reality. So this is my 18th year. So I think I've seen a couple cycles, right? Good
Yeah.
cycles, bad cycles, and so on. And in 08 to 09, I was still with Uncle Bob's. Their year-over-year revenue for the first time in 30 years at that time, they've been in business for 45 years now, but for 30 years at that time, for the first time, had a negative year-over-year revenue in 08 to 09, where multifamily, single family was getting crushed because of the housing market, and all the businesses were getting crushed because of the housing market. They had a 2.5% decrease in top line revenue year over year. Okay. 1 year out of the 45 years they've been in business, they had a decrease year over year. So in the private market for us, in the public market, their stock went from 56 bucks to $16 because that's how Wall Street evaluates what their portfolio is worth because of the market. But in ours, we don't lose money until we sell that property. If you're selling that property at that time with a negative year over year, you're going to get less money for it. But the reality is, keep the property and wait until the cycle ends and you sell it. And then that way, your year over year, if it drops 2.5%, I'll bet you're still paying your dividend to your investors. It might be a little bit smaller, but you're still paying them something. And if it's your first year of owning that property, you might miss the mark on your first year, but you be honest with your investors and you say, look, the market, blah, blah, 2.5%, I can only pay you 3.5% dividend instead of a 6%. They're like, okay, I got something, right? I didn't lose money because you didn't sell the property. The difference is in multifamily, when you miss, you really miss. Watch what happens in the next 24 months. And then call me and say, hey, I found this really good self-storage property and we'll do it together.
And what happened by COVID to self-storage? How was it affected?
We had 30% year over year increases in rent.
Really?
Yeah. You know why? Because you scaredy cats went home and cleared out your third bedroom and put your shit in my units.
Love it. Love the passion.
They made office space.
What else happened is all
They
these
made home offices.
Yeah, all these offices, they downsized all their call centers, use technology, they use Zoom like this, all that kind of stuff. Well, where did they put the stuff?
Right.
So
That's why I have a t-shirt that says on the back of it says hashtag no toilets. I get people who do say literally the back, if I can turn this around, and I have these designed while I was down, right before
Oh
I
my
went down
gosh.
National SSA, because
So
I was
that-
like, there's no way, and I would get contacted, from
I'm
doing
really
being on
passionate
social
about
media.
these investor
Yeah.
conversations. I do 300 of these a year. So, I mean, that's how I've raised money and so on is I talk to a lot of different types of investors that I share with them why storage is a good investment, right? But I got to tell you, Ariel, I appreciate you being the one that went, hey, can I ask this question? Because I pick on you instead of the other 10 people that wanted to ask the same damn question. So tired of hearing about multifamily because it's such BS. You know what that stands for, right?
Yeah.
It stands for belief system. And their belief system is that it's such a great asset and they go blow smoke about how in bad times it's this and it. Go back to the 80s and find out how many houses and apartments went foreclosure during the Jimmy Carter era. And you'll change your mind. Take their stuff out of that and put it someplace. Whether we like it or not, we get an emotional attachment to items, right? Grandma's dresser, all this different stuff. And I'll bet you if you talk to your family and friends and so on, someone is going to go, that's so funny. I have a unit that I've had for 16 months that has a sofa in it. And what I paid on rent, I could have bought a new sofa. I don't know what the hell I have that unit for. And I go, thank you, because you helped me pay my mortgage.
Awesome.
So-
Hey, Malou, go ahead. And
Yes, I have a question, and for Ariel as well. I buy pre-foreclosure houses, and people with foreclosure, they go into the hole, but they don't let go their stuff, and they go and get a storage because they don't qualify for rent. They go live with family, and they put all their junk in the storage. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't see storage being a bad deal, at least in the coming lots of years.
But I bet you if you asked yourself a truly honest question and you answered it honestly, the reason that you're in single family is because you're familiar with it. And the reason you're not in
Yes.
self-storage is because you're not familiar with it.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm here, because one single family deal is just as much work as a bigger deal, because I create notes. So my deal doesn't end for 30 years. It's like
Yep.
babysitting that note forever, and it's a lot of work.
You
So
got it.
that's why I'm here. I want to do bigger deals with, better reward, basically.
That also holds true for the 50, 100, 150 space property. You bust your ass the same exact way on that as you do on a $6 million deal.
Yes.
Work.
Yes. So I do have quite a bit of a knowledge gap that I have to gain for self-storage. And I saw you were answering Isaac's question, and my question is this, and that's my strategy, and I shared this with Anthony before, is I'm doing some training, learning this self-storage business, but my idea is bring deals to big investors like you, like Anthony, to get my feet wet and understand I'm not financially ready to own one, and I don't have enough knowledge, exactly what you said. So for me, it would be, can I partner up with a big investors that know what they're doing, and just kind of wholesale to start with, and build some cash and build some confidence, mostly confidence.
It is confidence. Thank you for saying.
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
so to all you guys out there, first read my book. This is all in the book. Okay. There's 4 parts to a deal. You find it, you bird dog it like you're talking about, but you lock it up under contract and you risk your own money. Okay. Because there's more reward in risk. The second thing you do is you raise the equity on it. The third thing you do is you sign on the debt. The fourth thing you do is you operate it, both from an operational standpoint and an asset management standpoint. So you have 4 parts to a deal. Unless it's a development deal, then there's 5 parts, and the other 5th part is to do the development on it, right? But I always say there's 4 parts to a deal because I don't do development. Of those 4 parts, figure out what you're the expert in and bring that to the table. And instead of bird dogging for a $5,000 fee on a $3 million deal, bring an expertise to the table and be partners with them. 1, you get more fees. 2, you get a piece of ownership. Have more confidence in yourself to know you bring value to the table. People out there will take total advantage of you doing that. And I think that's unfair to you, because you are bringing value to the table, because you build a relationship with that seller. It's my friend's uncle's sister's pen pal, and that's how I know them. Well, your network is worth money, but you got to negotiate it, get it under contract, lock it up, and risk your own money, which in that case, a $3 million deal is typically 30 grand. If you don't have 30 grand, if these are all 25% ownership of that promote, you get 25, give your brother half of that and get 30 grand from him. And then you got 25% of the deal. And then I go raise the money, I sign on the debt, and I operate it, and now we own a deal together.
Gotcha.
Don't sell yourself short for short selling because you found the foreclosure list. By the way, there's no foreclosure list in self-storage because they don't get foreclosure.
They
Love
don't.
it. Love
Thank
it.
you.
James, I know you're long. Oh, by the way, a few minutes ago, you had something on your mind. Do you still have something you want to comment on, or?
No, I'm just listening to this handsome fella on the call here. Because what you guys hear, I've already heard. So, but I want everybody here to understand that there's different ways to do things and different ways to think about things than the traditional institutional way. And that right there is my brother, John Maines. So
Awesome, man. John, where do we take this from here? I mean, we've all got an ass here this morning.
So
In a good-
everybody misconstrues this for anger, and it's not. It's true passion.
No, I
Like-
know, and I absolutely
it's
love
funny.
it. Like I said, like most people this morning I've talked to, I haven't had the pleasure to actually meet you in person, but everybody who talks about you says you're one of the most giving person, but also the most passionate about self-storage, and definitely out there. So that's why I said I was super happy to have you on today.
So let me go back to some of your, I'm gonna tie some questions together about,
Mhm.
just about mine, Joe's and James's upbringing. Is middle child, right? Everybody knows what middle child syndrome is? Yeah, I know it. I live it, right? That whole rebel mentality is what you're hearing and feeling right now. Is one of my mentors years ago, who will rename nameless because nameless, is because I got into a shouting match with him and called him a pompous ass, because he does deals institutionally. And he goes around telling everybody, well, I put $600,000 into every one of my deals. And I go, you're a pompous ass. Not everybody has $600,000. Stop saying that. And there's where my passion comes from. We come from a poor family. We went trash picking every Wednesday night. Every Wednesday night. It's amazing what you find in the trash, because that's exactly what's made me wealthy in storage, is people put their trash in my units. We went trash picking every Wednesday night, and have back then found valuable items that people threw away and so on, because we didn't have money. But because of that, that's where the drive and determination comes from. Here's what I do know. I know I never want to be poor again. Ever. I'm going to do what it takes. Some of the problems with the people in this room is you've not felt that pain. If you have a copy of my book, turn it over and see what it says at the top of the book on the back page. Does anybody have a copy of it?
Back in the other room. I'll be right back.
Okay.
John, tell them about the golf balls.
Oh, that's funny. Because I found a video recently that the dude was doing the same thing.
I know.
My brothers, we grew up right near a golf course. And as kids, we got our ass beat for this stuff. But as kids, we'd go up there and we'd go into the ponds, and we would, with our feet against our leg, grab a golf ball, run it up the side of your leg, because it was muddy, muddy water. And we grab the golf ball, toss it onto the green. We got chased off the golf course so many times. But what we would do is we'd collect hundreds of golf balls, and we'd take them home, and we'd wash them, and we'd put them in egg cartons, and then we'd show back up at the 12th hole, and we'd sell them to golfers for $5 a dozen so that we made money. The reason that we got our ass beat all the time is because back then I wore those tighty whitey underwear, and they were black. And my mom was like, what have you guys been doing? Well, we were in the pond and we were getting golf. Don't do that again. So we'd get to the golf course in the woods. We'd take our pants off, take our underwear off, put our shorts back on, and go back in the water so we didn't get in trouble when we got home. So we could make $5 a dozen. So,
When you don't have $5, I mean, I know we were kids even, but when you don't have $5 to, go with your friends to do something, you find a way to, get that hoagie in class with everybody else. And whether you pay for it yourself or you didn't have it. So what you did was you worked for it. And that's what he's saying about, once you've felt being poor, you never want to be poor again.
Yeah.
my mom,
So here's, I don't know if you can see it or not. I don't think it'll work.
go
There we go.
closer. Says the pain of the same has to be greater than the pain of the change. So your same right now is too comfortable. Make it painful. And realize that the change is a lot easier. It really is. So the pain of your same. So some of you that are making $150,000 a year and want to get out of this career and so on, your problem is you make $150,000 a year. It's too comfortable. Make it painful. I just happened to be lucky enough that somebody else made it painful for me and fired me. So, but I saw the opposite as being easier. Well, shit, I'll start another company, right? So the other story I tell is my mom, back then, there was two types of sneakers. Well, three. There was Bobos, as we called them.
Yeah.
Cheap Kmart brand, right? There was Chucks, Converse All-Star Chucks, and Nike's leather swish came out at the time. And that was the three. And Chucks were $12 and Nikes were $30. And mom would say, the only thing I can afford is the $12 Chucks. You don't have to go to school with Bobos on, but I can only afford the $12 Chucks. If you want Nikes, you got to come up with the other $18. So I'd shovel snow, I'd mow lawns, I'd deliver newspapers at 5 o'clock in the morning, almost every morning, 7 days a week, to make a nickel tip from my customers. All of that to have $18 so that I could go around buying Nikes, because it was too painful for me to wear Chucks. I wanted Nikes.
Gotcha. And Crystal, Isaac, I got you next. I just want one question from the chat. Crystal, who has a few facilities. Do we have any tips for filling under-occupied facilities?
We're probably the most basic supply and demand business that you have. Okay? It's as easy as understanding what your demand in the market is. You can't increase demand by lowering prices. It is the demand in the market.
Not on the Zoom. Either.
So what you can do is you can steal market share is all you can do. So people have this mentality in pricing and specials and things like that as a race to the bottom. First and foremost, so who asked that question?
Crystal, go ahead, Crystal.
Crystal, can you unmute?
Hey. Yeah. Hey,
So
John.
how big are your properties?
So these facilities, we have about 300 units across 3 facilities that are all within like 10 minutes of each other, 15 minutes of each other.
Yeah. So small, got it. Who are you using for your website?
Easy storage.
There's your
Solutions.
problem.
Okay.
Okay, so Easy Storage Solution, they offer you a landing page. They don't do any SEO. They don't redo your content on a monthly basis. They don't do blogs. They don't do all the stuff that Google wants you to do to gain SEO. For those of you who don't know that, that's search engine optimization organically. How do you higher in the ranking organically? Is you got to constantly be massaging your website over and over again. So for you newbies that are into this remote management thing and hiring the cheapest places out there, you get the cheapest results. So
yeah, we did have a better bells and whistles, and we actually just got rid of them and switched over because they were promising all of that, but it was not delivering. So I am doing like the Google business, and I did SEO in my other world. So I am familiar with that. I guess I'm just like taking from other facilities. I do feel like that's where it is. But I don't know.
It's not just a pricing game. So,
okay.
Again, just like Ariel, you're the one that spoke up. So thank you. So I get to
Sure.
pick on you.
Yep.
So I'll bet you don't know what page of your website is your biggest drop-off point.
Not off the top. I mean, I could look into it. I should look into it.
So
I should know these things. Yeah, go for it.
So like as an example, your biggest drop-off point might be where you get to it and the button says reserve, right? That might be it. Or your biggest drop-off point is when it goes to reserve to the next page of pricing. That might be your biggest drop-off point. Or your biggest drop-off point might be your homepage, because they realize that you're a really tiny store. You don't have a gate, you don't have fence, you don't have cameras. and that's not what they're looking. So knowing where your drop-off point on your website is organically, page by page, will really tell you what your
Yeah.
customer behavior is, right?
Right. Okay. That's
But
good.
pre that, if
Mhm,
finding you at all, what's
mhm.
what your drop-off is, right?
Right,
So
right.
organically, what keywords you're being maximized for. Again, not picking on easy storage solutions, but again, I'm passionate about this, is what ends up happening is they don't do keyword maximization for you,
Mhm,
all in SEO. They don't do that. So who does it? You got to pay for that.
mhm.
Again, Crystal, thank you for speaking up. Stop being so damn cheap. Spend
Mhm.
money.
Yeah, well, where we're spending money, we're spending about $1,000 on Facebook Marketplace ads every month. And and so that's where I feel like we are getting the most, but I'm just wondering if I agree. And maybe we need to divert some of those dollars. Like, what would you say a budget, like $1,000, $2,000 a month? Like what, I mean, I feel like we are
So
doing the
there's a couple of
marketing.
things here, like my mind's going a mile a minute, so thank you. So there's a couple of things.
Yeah.
Number one, I'll bet you when you bought the properties, you didn't underwrite $2,000 a month in marketing for your properties. So what that tells me is you overpaid for your properties because you didn't put enough expense in the properties to underpay for that property, to have the cash flow, pay for that kind of stuff. So part of the problem with our industry is, no offense, you newbies, but you're all coming in paying too much for the damn properties. And we are the market. We're the ones that speak with price. So underwrite that stuff on the front end so that you're not overpaying for that property. And then you're going to say, well, but if I don't, then I don't get the deal. Don't buy a bad deal. Buy a deal that's going to make you money, or you're going to have stress like Crystal has right now.
Well, thankfully we have plenty of reserves, and we bought it at probably 60% on the dollar. So we are fine. We're not going underwater, but I'm just like, why is my occupancy not moving? This isn't my first facility. And these are just, and maybe it is just the market, but unfortunately I've got a 12 o'clock. So I got to roll, but I'm going to watch the recording. So keep talking to what I need to do. I got to go get on my other meeting, but thank you, John. I appreciate it so much.
Okay.
You have a great one. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Crystal.
So to continue what I was saying with her is like, I don't know the dollar amount you should spend because every market is different, right? But what I do know is in this industry, everybody has this immediate gratification thing. And Google doesn't do that. You can't go spend $1,000 and rank #1 instantly. It takes you a period of time. They want you to be a reputable company, and they want you to gradually get to the top by doing the right things that they put into their algorithm and so on. This whole thing that I'm talking about for the newbies and existing people is, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a get rich over time scheme. And you gotta be patient to allow it to happen. What she said, and this is why I said about picking on her, is she said, well, you know, they overpromised, blah, 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 blah. I bet you she gave them 3 months time to try to make that impact at $1,000 a month. They didn't make the impact, and they're like, this company sucks, and they quit. But you can't get an impact in 90 days.
No, and I can contest that, you know, too. Even when you do get it set after 6 months and you're getting towards the top, that's an ever-going process. That's Google is an ever-going, it's ongoing and it never stops. Once you get to the top, don't stop, because that's when you're going to go back down. Yeah.
So I for those of you, full disclosure, I'm part owner of Fine View Marketing, Christina Alvino. The reason that we partnered is because she does it right, but she does it over time. She's not perfect, and she has a team of people that will talk to you. So, but the problem I see in this industry is they look to the expert to be the expert, and then they step in and try to tell them what to do. And that just blows my mind. Is let the expert be the expert and then influence it versus stepping in and trying to control it. The problem is we're all going out hiring Easy Storage Solution because it's the cheapest platform on the market, not just from their operating software, but from their website, and you're getting your results. So that's why I asked her who she's using, is because your wish is my command. If you're going to spend $100 on a website a month, you're going to get $100 worth of value. That's simple.
Awesome. I just want to see, anybody else have any quick questions or anything else?
Hey, John,
Hey,
I
James.
think maybe, maybe talk to them about the resources and what we talked about earlier today.
Gotcha. So, so James and my nephew Ethan, who we're helping create a project management company for construction related stuff. I had them come to my board meetings last year, and they sat in on 5 days of board meetings. And on the way to the meeting, I had one request prior to the meeting, is that they were required to bring a tablet of paper and a pen. And we're driving from my house to the meeting room. And I go, okay, here's the rules. Are you ready? They're like, yeah. I go, shut your mouth. You're not allowed to say anything in my meeting. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're a fly on the wall. You're not allowed to be there. So you're there to learn. You're not there. I don't care about your opinion. Write it down on your piece of paper. Give me your opinion later. Write the question down on your piece of paper and ask me the question later. Do not distract from my board meetings. All right, so why are you there? James goes, well, I'm here to learn. Exactly. But what are you here to learn? You're here to learn where all of your resources are, is the only reason you're here. You're here to learn who the expert is in every single category that you can possibly think of. And if you think of a category that you don't realize might not be in the room, or nobody spoke up to that category, write it down. Ask me later, who do you use for this resource? Who do you use for that resource? And I'll give you those resources. The reason you're in this room today is to find your resources. It's the only reason you're here. Your network is your net worth. And I go back to the story about my brother Joe. You have everything lined up. What are you waiting for? I had all my resources and didn't know it. And that was the kick in the ass that I needed to go out on my own, because I realized I had a lawyer. I knew how to raise money. I knew how to underwrite. I knew how to operate them. I knew what quarterly reports look like because I did them at my last company. I knew all the pieces. I had all the resources. I had a bookkeeping department. What was I waiting for? So for those of you in the room, take an erasable board or an Excel worksheet. I'm old. I use erasable boards. Write out what resources you need all over your erasable board. And then right next to it, write one resource or 10, right? No resources, and then go find the resource. But write out all the stuff that you need and start plugging in your resources. It'll make it a hell of a lot easier for you guys to do deals. A lot easier. And that was my realization. Me, I'm a visual learner. So all that was in here. You know, I partnered with Robbie Dunn. He had a bunch of resources. Together, we combined those resources, and instantly we were on steroids. Simply because of the resources that we had. And we didn't even realize it.
And execution.
Yeah. Well, then we went and executed because that's who we are.
Yeah, definitely resources and resourcefulness.
Yeah. So I heard you last time, Anthony, that I sat in on one of these say, you know, get in the room. Like for those of you around Texas or anywhere, I don't care. On Mondays, come to my office and be a fly on the wall. You got one rule. Shut up. I don't want your opinion. Ask me later.
Guys, John means that too. John
Oh, where
I've
the
known
hell did
John
you
50
come from?
Oh, I'm at the Northeast. I'm at the Northeast Expo. So I've literally been talking to people for the last until I was able to get on. But John, I've known John almost my entire 15-year career. And from the very first time, I haven't always listened to him, which I wish I did, because he's always given good advice. And it took me a little while longer, but I will say I've never met, like, I try to give my time freely to people, and I always try to help. John has always had the answers and always been willing. The only thing he's ever asked is, just give me your ear and listen, right? And
But if I don't have the answer, I give you the resource to go find the answer.
And how many people do you know at the end of a session will sit there and go, here's my phone number, here's my email, it's your fault if you don't reach out. Like, that matters. So
I'll tell
I
you a
take
funny
everything
story.
he says to heart.
So Damon's a business partner of mine on Storage Shield. We own Storage Shield together, and it's a tenant protection program. So if you guys need tenant protection, reach out to Damon.
We actually got Damon's coming out on June 7th to get him scheduled for one of our.
Crazy excited to be with you guys.
I'm
Awesome,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
So on Monday, I'm flying cross country, and me and Damon have a standing call every Monday, 2:00 Texas time, 3:00 Philly time. He calls me, hey, can we do this like 45 minutes early? I'm driving to fly out, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm sitting in the Baltimore airport waiting to take his call. I have like a 3-hour stopover. And I said, you're flying out? He said, yeah. So flying out of where? He said, Baltimore. I said, well, why don't we have the meeting here?
Only us.
Same damn airport at the same time, didn't even know.
Only us. That's funny.
So,
All right, I got to go talk to someone else. Love you, man. Love you guys. Bye.
love you too.
Hey,
Susan,
John, I will take that offer to
Come
go
on.
be a fly on the wall.
Come on.
I'm gonna drive from Dallas and just sit
Oh, you're
there
in
and
Dallas?
listen. Yes,
Yep.
not far.
So we're in Katy. What I say is you're in the room to find out what your resources are. That's why you're there. And like at the end of the day, I'll give you an hour or two of my personal time, and I'll answer whatever questions you write down on that piece of paper. Like James and Ethan were staying at my house. So every night for like 6 nights, it was question
What about
asking.
this? What about that? What about this?
I
What
would
about
do it
that?
this way. I just do it like that.
All the basic questions.
Yeah.
Get them out of the way.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, what
That's
else?
all. That's all I got. Unless anybody else has any questions. I mean, my mind is.
You got a chance to ask them. Feel free.
Well, can you talk a little bit about marketing to get those properties? Is that any different than the single family marketing?
So I'm such a smart ass in my own head. So here's my answer. I don't do anything. So that's what
I figured that.
like I surround myself with great people. Do I do stuff? Yeah. I mean, I flew to Buffalo to look at 3 pieces of land for a buddy of mine as the storage expert. And I used to live in that market. So I know the general market, but I flew up there to help him, with no strings attached. And so like I spent 2 days just to go look at 3 pieces of land for him. So, but I've been friends with him for like 10 years. So I give, and because I give and I give freely and I give from a position of expertise, whatever that category is, it does not matter. If there's anything, like I know we're on Zoom and you guys can feel my energy, but keep in mind, I can feel your energy too. And how you say it, Malu? How you say it?
Yes, correct.
Malu. Take a deep breath, puff your chest out, and walk into the room like you're the biggest badass there is. So James says, fake it till you make it, right? There's a certain portion of that that you have to have, but you got to follow it up. You got to bring something to the table, right? I can already sense that you have something to bring to the table. So be confident enough to walk in a room and own it. The reason I'm telling you that is you said, what is your marketing plan to find deals? That is my marketing plan. Who wears a jacket like this?
And I have a book,
I mean,
Authority.
well, authority.
Yep.
But I back it up too. And so it's not the fake it till you make it statement. I'm not faking, right? But sometimes you have to lie to yourself so that other people believe it. And like, I walk around with this jacket, and these guys that all know me, I walk around with this jacket anywhere. I go to billionaires' homes in this jacket. One, because I don't give a shit. That's just who I am. But two, it shows a level of confidence. And like, I'll go to, for those of you who know what a family office conference is, or a VC venture capitalist type of conference and so on, I'll go to those where there's all these navy and gray skinny suit kids, you know, the kids I'm talking about that want to tell you about cap rates and all that kind of stuff, right?
Like walking around down in the SSA show.
Yeah, and then I eat their lunch, right? So I walk around like this and I stand out like a sore thumb. But then they come up to me and start talking about cap rates. What? So you buy storage? Yeah. What kind of cap rates you getting? I go, okay, let me ask you a question. Is that based on your expenses or my expense structure? How are we looking at that cap rate? Well, what do you mean? Well, what percentage of expenses do you spend against revenue? Well, 35%. Well, I spend 43. So if I add my 43 to your revenue numbers, my cap rate's going to be different than your cap rate, right? Oh, well, I never thought about it like that. Well, I know. That's why you're paying too much for your asset, because I budget 43%. I don't pay that for my asset because I got bills to pay, and I'm not giving you that free money. I want it for me and for my investors. So the fake it till you make it, this is the fake it, right? But then I back it up with something. You have something to back it up with. Walk into a room, be the brand. That's what I say. So my marketing is me. I'm the brand. I'm gonna pick on Anthony for a second. He got the name of my company wrong. And I don't care, because you're gonna remember John Manus when it's all said and done. You won't know what company I'm with. You are your brand. Get out there, get in the right room, have the confidence to bring something to the table, and you'll be amazed at what comes at you. Because I had $100 million exit to one of the REITs, I'm now part owner of a $150 million insurance company. I'm part owner of a marketing company. I'm part owner of a storage protection company. I'm part owner of a capital company that sources debt for storage. I'm part owner of a management company. Probably in the future, part owner of a project management company. Like, all of those things, I've got an opportunity that I was on the ground floor of a friend and family round of one of the biggest cryptocurrencies that are going to hit the market, and I got them for free. Like, all of the stuff, the opportunities come at you, and it just blows your mind, because you put on an ugly jacket, you lie to yourself and tell you you're confident, you walk into a room and people go, this guy knows what the hell he's talking about. What about this? What about that? What about this? And I look at opportunity, which then, like, the opportunities come at me crazy anymore, like just nuts. And it's all because of, for me, it was the last 11 years of self-branding. So when I left Uncle Bob's, I knew 3 people in the self-storage industry outside of Uncle Bob's that were in storage. That's all I knew. So networking for a job was hard for me because I didn't know anybody. And networking for a job at the C level is even harder because I didn't know anybody, and those opportunities are much more limited. And I swore that would never happen. So when I landed the job with the regional player that is here in Houston, I started volunteering to speak on what my expertise was at the time, and that was operations, marketing, revenue management, hiring and firing of team members, all the expertise that I brought to the table. I started speaking on that to create a John Manus brand, as well as to promote the brand of the company that I was working for. But what it did was it excelled the John Manus brand so big that that's where that whole small wiener syndrome comes in, is I became bigger than his brand. And that's why he fired me. So become your brand. And like, if you ask around, you'll hear people talk about how passionate I am. Then you'll hear the insecure people talk about how arrogant I am. And it's true. Both of those are true. Because that's, I mean, I am my brand. This is who I am. I already told you where it comes from and why, all that. Create your brand, work within your personality, all of that. Hire Fine View Marketing to coach you on what your personal brand is. By the way, they're the ones that invented the jacket. Best $250 marketing program I've ever spent. They'll do the same for you.
What is the name again?
Fine View Marketing. They're out of Austin, Texas.
Find you.
Fine View.
Okay.
They're full service marketing where nobody else in our industry does full service. Most everybody does websites. And a website is not just your brand. Your brand is your brand. So thank you, Anthony.
I can multitask.
appreciate it.
I have,
Because
I mean, I may get your company wrong, but I can at least
That's
I can
all right.
still multitask.
That's okay. My smart ass answer to that was, you said, what's my marketing plan is, I don't know, because I don't do it. I know it, but like, I can teach it to you, but I don't do it. Like, I trust in the people that I surround myself with, and I expect excellence because Z-Lags don't make mistakes, period. So because of that, I expect the same out of Fine View. I expect the same out of my team. I expect the same out of James, with the realistic understanding that I know they're going to trip and fall on their face, and that's okay. So I'm not a total ass about it. But like, if we make mistakes, that's fine. I don't care. What are we doing to fix it? Let's go fix it. So Fine View is going to make mistakes for you, but ask them how they're going to fix it, and they'll tell you. Hold them accountable and have passion behind it. And don't give up. Most people give up. So Tony Robbins teaches this thing about money. And I'm going to play this with Anthony because he's off a speaker. You and I are going to play an 18-hole golf course. I don't play golf. We're going to bet 10 cents on the first hole. Are you in?
No, because I know this one, but I'll play with you. I'll play along with you because I do listen. I just actually listened to this 2 days ago while I was mowing the lawn. Sure, I'm in. Yes. 10 cents.
Okay.
That's fine. What is that?
10 cents, right?
Yep. $1.80. We're good.
Yep. So on the second hole, we're going to bet 20 cents. We're going to double it and bet 20 cents. Are you still in?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to double it every single hole until the 18th hole. Are you still in?
I don't know. This sounds like it's going to get expensive.
So what do you think the 18th hole is?
I know it's some astronomical amount.
So I'm going to do it for you. 10 is 20, 20 is 40, 40 is 80, 80 is 160, 160 is 320, 320 is 640, 640, 1280, 1280, I'm gonna round up, is $25. Most people get to the $25 mark and they say, oh my God, I busted my ass for this period of time. This stuff, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So they give up and they stop. And you're on the 9th hole. You just worked 4 years of busting your ass to create a self-storage company. You've hired all these marketing companies and so on, and it just didn't work. So I'm going to fire the marketing company. I only own 3 stores. I'm going to sell them because it doesn't work. But watch, 25 becomes 50, 50 becomes 100, 102, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 16, 16, 32, 32, 64. The last hole is $11,300. All on a 10-cent bet. That's how compounding works, but it's also psychologically how we work, is we think we busted our ass for so long. I didn't become a millionaire until I was 48 years old. I'm 55 right now, and in the last 6 years, I've made $20 million. Because the last hole, 18 becomes 36, 36 becomes 64, 64 becomes, and so on and so on. The bigger the pie, the more opportunities. So you're asking how and why and all that. Get in the right room, bring in expertise, surround yourself with good people, and keep going. Don't stop.
That's awesome.
I have a question.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, John. I have a question. On every facility, do you use the 43% expense ratio? No
No.
matter what size the facility is?
No. So let me help you, okay? I'm a numbers guy. I can't spell worth a shit. That's why I had a ghostwriter for my book. Okay, but I'm gonna give you a tip. You ready? It's really, really easy. It's gonna blow your mind, and you're gonna find out whether you're overpaying for a property right off the bat. When you talk to a broker or the owner or whatever, and you say to them, I'd like to buy your property, first question you ask is, how big is it? And you want to know the square footage. You don't want to know how many units. Okay? And they say it's 20,000 square foot. Then I ask, how much do you do a month? And when you find out their monthly revenue, you multiply it by 120. So if it's doing $20,000 a month, times 120 is $2.4 million, is a reasonable price for that property. Now watch, that's a 40% expense ratio at a 6 cap. So if anybody wants to do the math, it's 20,000 times 12 or 240, 240 times 60%, the opposite of 40%, which is 144, divided by a 0.06 is $2.4 million. Okay, are we in a 6 cap market? Where do you,
I want 7 cap
okay, so
or higher.
last July, before a bunch of interest rates, I was at the Texas Self-Storage Association conference. They showed the year before, 12 months trailing, national average was 5.6 cap national average. So let's just say it's 6.6 right now. What you would do is you would take your monthly number of 20,000 times 100, which is $2 million. And if you take 20,000 times 12 times 0.60 divided by 0.065, that's 2.2, divided by 0.66 is 2.18, divided by 7 is 2,057,000. So for every quarter of a point, you add 0.1 or subtract 0.1, depending if you're going up or down in cap. So I, on the back of a napkin, I'll say, 20,000, how much do you want? I want $3 million for the property. I go, oh, so you're overpriced. How do you figure I'm overpriced? Well, because 40% expense ratio, which is low for me. I run 43s, but you're running 35s, probably, I'm guessing. So I'm running 43s, but giving you the benefit of doubt, I'm gonna math it out to 40% at a 40% expense ratio at a 6 cap, and we're in a 7 cap market right now. Again, giving you the benefit of doubt, your property's worth $2.4 million, not $3 million. And I do that right in my head. So,
Okay.
so you can play around with that. What you do is take their monthly revenue, do whatever expense ratio you want, divided by whatever cap rate you want, and then it gives you a dollar amount, and then take your dollar amount, like 2 million, divide it by the monthly revenue, and it'll give you 101 or 103 or 100, like it'll give you something to that nature that you then can use for the back of the napkin later on.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, John, I definitely appreciate, I
But
appreciate.
the most important thing, Amy, is don't pay $3 million for that damn property.
Right? Make my numbers work, right?
Yeah.
And if they don't work, don't buy it.
Correct.
Exactly. Okay.
There's
Yes,
more out
don't
there.
force
There's-
my numbers.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, don't,
Okay.
because you're lying to yourself.
Right. Okay.
John, I want to say, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know like you constantly give it away. I know everybody got a lot of value, and I'm going to respect your time today, as well as everybody else. We're going to jump off. What I did do is if you look, anybody who is here, who is live, I did put your LinkedIn on the in the chat here, as well as I'm going to put one more link in here. I'm going to give 3 copies away of John's book. I will personally mail them to you. We ordered 18 of them. We got a few extras coming on up for a mastermind that we're going to be giving away. So I'm going to put that link in here. Is if anybody is watching live on Facebook as well too, I did put that link in there in the comments. I'll put that tomorrow. I'll choose somebody who does register, or at least put your information there. I'm not going to spam anything. It just makes it easy for me to pick somebody, 3 random people with your name, email, and your address to contact you and send those books on out to you. If you do want to order John's book as well, there is a link in here, and I'll include that. Awesome.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is awesome. Awesome.
All right. It's John at johnmanes.com, MANES. My phone number, 210-818-1496. As James says, if you don't contact me, it's your own damn fault.
Yeah, come join the fun.
Come join the fun.
Awesome. Any last words, John?
Get off your ass.
Absolutely love it. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we will catch up with you soon, either on the phone or in person. James, looking